When Joe Burrow eventually returns to the field, what impact will this have on the NFL season?
None. Not any impact whatsoever. I think Joe Burrow's impact is only going to be an impact on his own health and wellness. But in terms of like the overarching NFL storylines, the AFC North, like the Bengals, I think it has basically zero impact, and it's not because Joe Burrow isn't awesome. It's because every other facet of this Bengals team outside of their wide receivers has been absolutely disgusting.
It's been gross, and coming into the year, we didn't like the Bengals to make the playoffs, not because Joe Burrow's not awesome, like no one says Joe Burrow's not great, he's great, but the rest of the team is an absolute failure, and Trysta, this is one of the worst defenses we've ever seen. So Joe Burrow could come back for this game against the Patriots, he could come back for next week's game, it doesn't make a difference, because they can score 35 points. They're going to give up 38 points. I don't even think they can play spoiler down the stretch here. I actually agree with you. I think it's no impact for the rest of the season for Joe Burrow coming back.
And I mean, if you talk about like what the responsibility is of Cincinnati, Joe Burrow shouldn't be coming back. It should be a wrap. Like, let him rest, recover, sit there, give him the clipboard like they do with Chad Powers, and say, you sit here and be the leader that we need, because next year, after a bunch of offseason moves that need to occur on the offensive line, on the defense, then we'll come back and see what we have. But there's no sense in November putting Joe Burrow back into harm's way, which he will be in harm's way.
There's no question about it. And I do think it's going to set something interesting up here, because all the reporting is that Burrow doesn't care about the record. And you can understand this, right? He's a competitor. Like, he got the big contract, wants to earn that contract, that he wants to go out there and play and perform and play well. But we are going to reach a point, and we're not there yet with the Bengals still technically, mathematically alive, Trysta, even if you and I both accurately, I believe, think that they have no chance of making the playoffs. I think we're still in a window where you can at least sell him maybe coming back. But if we're 2-3 weeks from now and they still haven't won a game and they're going to finish below 500 with 7 losses already, I agree with you that they shouldn't bring him back. And you know, we both love fantasy football. I don't even think they need him for fantasy, because Joe Flacco's been doing great with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Chase Brown.
If you look at what he did in those first 2 weeks, 8.8 fantasy points and 7 fantasy points. He wasn't lighting things up for fantasy either. The only reason, if you're a Joe Burrow owner, that you think to yourself, oh, I hope he comes back, is because you didn't get Joe Flacco, and you're sitting there getting in the bottom of the barrel of the waiver wire with Tyrod Taylor and Jameis Winston, and you've got no other options. Like, it's just a Hail Mary. It's a prayer and a hope that he's sitting there on your IR right now.
Yeah, and look, if you've got Jamar Chase, obviously you should never spit at anybody. He's not going to play this weekend. But if you have Chase and T. Higgins and Chase Brown, Joe Flacco has shown that he's more than capable of getting them to put up pretty big numbers. I don't think you need Burrow to make that happen. Joe Flacco's been doing a pretty good job of that. Are the Cincinnati Bengals, Trysta, are we reaching the point where someone could accurately say, are they ruining Joe Burrow and setting him up for failure over the balance of the rest of his career?
Yeah, I would call this malfeasance. I would put this into the category of Indianapolis Colts negligence, where you've got a Ferrari and you don't insure the Ferrari. You do not protect the Ferrari. You leave it in a Walmart parking lot overnight, over and over and over again, just tempting fate, as my mom would say. No, I think at this point, everything that Cincinnati has shown is that they have no care or protection for a once-in-a-generation quarterback that is Joe Burrow. And I would not be surprised if Joe Burrow, based on injuries, retires early like Andrew Luck did.
Ooh, that would be wild. I think the difference, like, Burrow went to a Super Bowl, obviously. They could have won that Super Bowl in his second season against the Rams, but lost it. Who knows if they'll get back there. I think it's too early to say that he's being ruined, like went to a conference championship game also. I still think he's got great football in front of him, but the Bengals have got to get this offensive line fixed and have got to get the defense fixed, because if we're sitting here a year from now, and Bengals fans, you have to admit this is true, and the defense is still this bad and the line still can't protect, then we are 1 year closer to Joe Burrow's prime completely being sunk here by incompetent management. They have got to get this right moving forward for Joe Burrow.
How many years has Joe Burrow in his career in the NFL been healthy? Like, not had issues where you could say he's either coming back from something or dealing with something severe. And there's been off seasons where the Cincinnati Bengals have, quote unquote, invested in the offensive line. So maybe they just can't coach these players. And maybe it's time for a wholesale fire sale of all of the coaching staff and start again, because we've seen players that are on this offensive line play better football elsewhere.
Zach Taylor is a clown, the Bengals head coach. They should have fired him years ago. It's ridiculous that he's still in charge. His big move is to hire Al Golden as the defensive coordinator coming from Notre Dame. He's been, the Midas touch turns everything to gold. This is the opposite of that. Everything he touches turns to you-know-what. That's no good. And the defensive coordinator they ran out of town, Lou Anarumo, is killing it with Indianapolis and is getting mentioned for head coaching jobs. So it's not just, to your point, it's not just on field for Cincinnati that they're screwing up. They're screwing up the coaches around. You might be talking me into this right now, that maybe they are ruining Joe Burrow.